Welcome to the Anglo Saxon Civics and Politics lecture number Tepien.Nigon B, or 2.9b. Today we are looking at the government, kings and kingdoms, Vikings, warriors, and armies of the Anglo-Saxon era. The government in the Anglo-Saxon time period had three branches, just like ours does today. The branches, although the general concept was the same, functioned very differently than they do today. The legislative branch, which makes up the laws, was run solely by the king and his select council. The executive branch, which enforces the laws, was run by the people, for if a crime was committed, the victim of the crime had the responsibility to seek justice. The judicial branch, which interprets the law, was very biased, for the king had a group of people overlooking the court, so he would always have an input on either the punishment of a criminal or the outcome of the court case. Since the Anglo-Saxons had no prisons, if convicted, he or she would be fined or executed. The five major and most powerful kingdoms at the time were Northumbria, East Anglia, Mercia, Wessex, and Kent. King Ethelbert is an essential king in the history of the Anglo-Saxons, for he was the first Christian king because he married the daughter of Paris, and during his reign, the arrival of St. Augustine was allowed to occur, which converted many Anglo-Saxons to Christianity. You know the great one, the man, the myth, the legend, King Arthur? He was one of the key individuals in the defense of Britain from the invading Saxons. It was the 5th and 6th century, and out came a king.
We, the people of Britain, are losing our land. It's time one of our people took the stand to fight against all of the Anglo-Saxons. We need a hero, the strongest man. King Arthur is soon to make history, to fight off all the threats that are hurting me. It's about time to fight the late 5th century. We have stories in our literacy. We had a victory at Baden Hill, Arthur in for the kill. If you will, invaders trying to steal our farms and mills, but it won't last forever just to get a feel. He wasn't the first or the last king. Change becomes a common thing. Many warriors and citizens died with the sting, and the people start rioting. Back to the Future, spoiler alert. Harold Godwinson, the king, rose from the dirt. The late 11th century is when the skirt entered their invaders' home turf.
Kings have kingdoms to rule over. Relating to the kingdoms, the major groups that eventually made up these kingdoms were the Jutes, the Frisians, and the Celts. The Jutes and the Frisians originated in the top of modern-day Denmark. Once entering the British Isles, they settled in Kent and the Isle of Wight, cooperating and living a peaceful life. The Celts spread their culture throughout the British Isles, originating in the times of Rome. They were located in eastern Mercia and were often bullied by their neighbors. These were the first people living in the British Isles. However, when the kingdoms were formed, they joined with either the Angevin, commonly known as the Anglos, or with the Saxoni, commonly known as the Saxons. The Picts and the Scots were the two main tribes that the Anglo-Saxons fought. The Kingdom of Kent was a key conquering point in the war between the Anglos and the Saxons. Although some groups settled in peace, such as the very early Jutes, the Frisians, and the Celts, many other groups attempted to invade and conquer the kingdoms of present-day England. The two most famous groups of invaders were the Normans and the Vikings. Both were partially successful, but neither succeeded to fully conquer England. The most feared invader that was the most successful were the Vikings, for there were only two ways to make them back off. A, give them money, or B, wage war against them. Many rulers waged war against the Vikings because any money offered often dissatisfied the Vikings. The Vikings often won these wars, but then they fell short when fighting the last kingdom that they desired to conquer, which was Wessex. When Wessex defeated the Vikings, King Alfred, the king of Wessex, created England. Then he became the sole ruler of the newfound land of England. The warriors in the battles against the Vikings or in any other fighting scenario wore a helmet and wielded a sword and shield, all which helped to identify which side the warrior was fighting for. The helmet was a pseudo-helmet that had uniquely decorated panels, an iron neck guard in the back, mask protecting the face, and leather lining. All this together was very expensive. The sword was commonly built among all kingdoms. It was made up of iron, the panel was made of gold, and during battles it was kept inside a wooden cover. It also had leather strips. Last but not least, the shield of a warrior was 91 centimeters, curved. It had bronze binding, a figure with dragons and other designs representing the kingdom that they were fighting for, and iron hand grips in the back. The armies were fairly small because the warriors' equipment was expensive, and there weren't a lot of people who occupied each kingdom of importance that wanted to fight. Here is a quick summary of all the things we went over. Without further ado, let's wrap it up. The three branches of government are the same as today. That's pretty easy to remember. For all I can say, the legislative run by the king made all the laws, the executive by the people with their own two paws. The judicial was biased and was run by the king. Punishment was simple, either pay a fine or no longer sing. Northumbria, East Anglia, Mercia, Wessex, and Kent. Run with them, or they will take your every last cent. Jutes, Frisians, Celts, and Anglo Saxon. Choose your side, or be considered a phony. The kings always fought for more and more land. The warriors fighting had gear to classify their band. The helmets were expensive, full of design. The sword was iron and in a perfect line. The shield helped to show which kingdom was mine. Vikings and the Normans were the feared invaders, with the goal of conquering Britannia, which was full of their haters. When Wessex beat the Vikings, England was made, ruled by one king who was well fed and well paid. Now that you got it in your head as clear as glass, that is it for today's lecture. I look forward to seeing you in class.